following show is intended for an adult audience. We may use explicit language or discuss mature themes. Monkey Boy may appear asleep or as though he has died, but don't worry. It's just because his eyelids sag like an old scrotum.
Hello! Hello!
Hello.
Oh my goodness, we're back. Guess
We
who's
are.
back?
We're back.
Back again. Lame is back.
We are
With
fully back.
lameness.
Indeed.
We're bringing sexy back. Oh!
Yeah.
Oh! Get him out of the shot, little toss pot.
Yeah,
Disappear you.
Robert,
Get out of it.
get out.
Get out of it.
Bastard.
No one, bastards always popping up when we don't want. Anyway. Monkey Boy, how are you, sir? Because I've not been speaking to you for the last half an hour, so I have no idea how your day or week's been. So, how's it going, man?
I'm okay. I do apologise if I've got sort of rather dark rings under my eyes. I think I've had about an average of about 2 hours sleep a night for the past week. So so my eyes are being saggier than normal, I'm afraid. But there we are. Never mind. Other than that, I'm doing okay. It's very hot here, quite muggy. But yeah, I'm all right, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I've just got back from a week in Devon, and lots of fun in Devon. Fun in the sun. Well, it was overcast, but it was nice overcast because it wasn't like hot. You know, like when you go on holiday, and it's just pissing down the whole time. Oh, this is ruined. Or you go and it's like it's lovely and hot like it was the week before last, but you die just for walking. Mm-hmm. So it was quite nice. So lots of fun stuff, lots of money at arcades. You know, like when you spend £100 on like to get tickets to get a £2.50 toy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, cool. Did you manage to get down to Paynton?
No, we didn't get down to Paynton this time. We decided to give it a miss because we go to Paynton literally all the time. It was about a 40-minute drive from where we were staying, so we just thought, there's loads here. We spent one day at a little amusement park thing where you buy token. They don't take cash. You go and you buy like 40 tokens. We did, and then each ride's a token. And Jack's just had me going on this ride like. You know when you're in the chairs and they just spin you round and round and round and round and round. I think the record was 7 times in a row, and oh my god, man, wow. Did I hurt the next day? It was absolutely ridiculous. But that's Jackson for you. But we've got a few in the chat, mate. So we should probably say hello to the chat, shouldn't we? Definitely say hello to the chat.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do that. So let me have a quick little look. So he was in a bit earlier, but Stu, the Universal Toy Collector, popped in. Hello, Stu. Thank you for popping along. I know he got his times muddled, but he's got a little football stream thing tonight. So if anyone wants to check that out, please do. Please do. Not to push people away from us, but it is a free market. And me and Stu tend to have this habit of clashing. So... Pick your poison. But no, thanks for popping along, Stu, and good luck with your stream this evening. We have Jojo. Hello, Jojo. How are you?
Hello.
We also have... We have Vader's Girl. Hello, Kat. How are you? Good to see you here this evening.
All right. How's it going?
We also have Alan Dawson. He says, might not be able to contribute to the chat as I will need to watch on my TV. Oh, right. Okay. So he's having problems with being able to communicate in the chat. But Alan, if you can get in any way or come in on your phone, that'd be great. Yep. We also have Travels and More with Jason. He says, hi. Hi, all. We have TJC. He says, evening, all. Hello.
Okay.
Well, this is you. Hello, you. Hello, you. We also have a long time ago. Hello, Martin. How are you, sir? Good to see you. Thanks for popping along.
Good evening.
We have Pete the Collector who says, what's up? Hello, Pete.
Hello.
Thank you for popping along.
Hey.
And we have Tim Hayes. He says, hi, Dave, at Monkeyboys Toys.
Hey.
I'm sure. Oh, and hello, he also says hello to me. And I think he's saying hello to everyone in the chat. So hello, Tim. Good to see you. And we've got Reynolds Reviews. He says, A up TJC, Adam and Tim. Oh, he also says A Hey up, chaps. Hope you're all well. So he said that earlier. It's just because I'm skimming through.
Good evening,
And we
Adrian.
also have the legendary Georgie Norris. She says,
Georgie.
"Heya, TJC," and she says, "Howdy all" as well. So I almost got through that unscathed. Unscathed. Right, let's have a little look. Monkey Boy, I hate to do this to you. I'm going to pop out of the studio for just a second and come back in. And then I'm going to ask you to do the same. So entertain the crowd for just a second, and I will be right back, sir. So entertain them.
I'll quickly explain what we're going to be doing this evening. So, guys, this evening we are going to be talking movies, sequels, franchises, the good ones, the bad ones, anything in between. It's not going to be a deep dive, so it's just going to be a shallow dive through the world of movie sequels.
Hello there. I'm back.
Yeah.
Monkey Boy, is there any chance you could...
So, hello.
Hello, mate. Any chance you could come out of the app, completely shut your internet down and come back in a second, and that would be fabulous. And I'll take my turn to take guardianship of the chat. So I'll see you in a second. Oh, where's he go? Oh, is he still there? He's still there. It's like the countdown. But yeah, no. So everyone, thank you so much for showing up this evening. So I'm not sure what Monkey Boy did or didn't say while I was popping out of the chat. But this evening, we are talking about sequels on demand. That was just a name which we thought was semi-clever. And we're just going to be talking film sequels. We really have no script. We really have very few notes. But the hope and plan is that what we will do is we will just talk about sequels we loved, we loathed, and sequels where we thought, what the flipping heck was that about? So we'll go through them. We want your contributions, anything you guys want to talk about. When Monkey Boy gets back in a second, like I say, he's just come back now. I'm going to add him to the stage. Hello, Monkey Boy.
Hello. Is that better? I don't know what the problem was. But...
Yes. We are fixed. We're fixed now, mate. I was having issues and you're having issues. I was just explaining, but you're perfect now, so we can move on from that little that little bit of StreamYard chaos. Me and Monkey Boy was saying before we came on earlier, StreamYard just absolutely hates us for no reason whatsoever. However,
every single stream that we've done so far, StreamYard has been a twat.
StreamYard, you really need to I don't often swear on these. StreamYard, up your fucking game, because this isn't a cheap thing, and every fucking stream, your program destroys our stream. So up your game, mate. And I do apologise for the bad language. And when Jax watches this back tomorrow, he's going to be like, "Daddy, you swore. Why were you swearing on the stream?" But it's really hitting a point of frustration now, because every stream we do, and me and Monkey Boy, we pay for this, so come on, get your shit together. Anyway, enough of that. Monkey Boy, while you're out of the studio, we were, I was saying what tonight is about, how it's called Sequels on Demand, how we're just going to be talking about sequels, taking sequels that we just want to talk about, the good, the bad, the what, the F, and also sequels people want to talk about in the chat. We did have a little discussion just before we came on the stream about a film franchise which is going to come up. There's no way we're going to get around this. We're both big fans of it. I'm pretty sure that everyone in the chat are big fans of this. So Monkey Boy, shall we tackle it head on? Do you want to sort of tackle this, give a little bit of preamble, and we'll get this one done, because this subject could take up the whole stream.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, we could take a whole stream discussing this, but it's inevitable. It's going to come up at some point. Star Wars is going to rear its head. So I think maybe that straight out of the gate we should discuss Star Wars briefly, and then move past it into film in general. So if we take maybe sort of 5-10 minutes just to sort of discuss briefly the Star Wars
franchise.
Franchise, that's the word I was looking for. So yeah. I mean,
so where do we go with this then? Because I mean, I off the bat, you know, Monkey Boy knows, and a few of you in the chat know, I'm probably, for me, I've enjoyed many of the other Star Wars films, but for me, Star Wars is those three films. I won't even refer to A New Hope as A New Hope. For me, it's Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. So shall we sort of, obviously we're talking sequels, so we all know we love Star Wars or A New Hope, as whatever your feeling is on that. So for me, sequels on Star Wars, what I would say is, as a kid, my favourite sequel in the Star Wars trilogy, before we had all this other stuff, was Return of the Jedi. But as I've got older and I've come to appreciate a bit more about how films are made and stories, and just get away from, I was probably in love with Jabba the Hutt and the scenes at the palace, but as I've got older, I think that Empire Strikes Back is pretty much the almost perfect sequel. What do you think, Monkey Boy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's considered as not only one of the best sequels of all time, but one of the best films of all time. So it's always going to be up there. I think it's probably the best film of the original trilogy, although I would agree with you in that when I was younger, Jedi was my favourite of the original trilogy. But yeah, certainly Empire Strikes Back is a fantastic film without a doubt. Very, very good. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that. I think most people that like Star Wars, evening Delvian.
Hello, Delvian.
Most people
good to see you.
Would agree that the Empire is probably the best of the original trilogy. And I suppose that the Star Wars franchise is kind of interesting, isn't it? Because you've got three sets of three films. You've got the OT, you've got the prequels, and then the sequels. But of course, chronologically, the prequels were sequels. Because they came after the original trilogy. So although they were canonically set before the events of the original trilogy, they were kind of sequels. What did you think of the prequel trilogy when it came out? Were you a fan?
Yeah, I was a fan when it first came. I'm not a fan of it now. I think the prequel trilogy, which in turn then had its own sequels, I think the prequel trilogy is one of those. I think it was a fantastic idea, but in places executed poorly. But that's just my opinion, because it also goes of age as well. I mean, the first time I saw a Star Wars film was actually Empire Strikes Back, and it was around 1988 or 18. I actually found it online. I managed to trace back through the TV listings for that year once upon a time. It was on my Facebook before I binned all that off. But I was quite young at the time, probably 11, going on 12 when The Phantom Menace came out. And to be fair, I really did enjoy the experience at the cinema. It's probably, as I've got older, I never really liked Jar Jar Binks to start with, but I loved Darth Maul. And as I've got older, I realise things like, I look at it now and go, why did you kill Darth Maul off in the first film? Like, Darth Maul was kick-ass. I loved Darth. I know later subsequent films it's revealed he's back and he's not dead. But at that moment in time, and of course you have to also have seen Solo, spoiler alert, and I've watched the extended EU stuff, the cartoons and that. But I thought that was a piss poor decision. As much as I love Christopher Lee in the Attack of the Clones, the second one, I just don't think Count Dooku was as cool as Darth Maul.
No.
And I thought Attack of the Clones was quite drawn out, because obviously you had the romance thing in it between Anakin and Padme, and they really did stretch that out. That felt more forced, and I think what you've got in the first film is, at the time, Padme and Anakin there's 3 to 4 years between kids of that age is a lot. Not like when you're an adult, it's nothing. So they really had to force all of that together in the middle film. And there's the sort of wooden act. I do think that Aiden Christensen. Sorry, I'm showing
Aiden Christensen,
terrible.
yeah.
Thank you. So I say I'm a Star Wars fan. Look at me, I'm getting the actor's name wrong. I think his acting was a little bit wooden in places, which is a complaint a lot of people make. I don't think it was terrible, but I think I almost felt he looked nervous on camera. I don't think the dialogue overly helped as well. And then, of course, you've got to force all this romance together, because the thing is, with the original trilogy, when it was released, no one knew what the end was. But this time round, we know what's coming. And so by the time you get to the final film in the prequel trilogy, which I do believe is the best film of the prequel trilogy, you know, that fight at the end between Obi-Wan and Anakin is it's absolutely insane. It's insane. I love that. So, yeah, you asked me a simple question. How did I feel about it? Overall, I enjoyed it. But as I've got older, I can see more and more holes in it. I probably could have just said that rather than rambled for 5 minutes. But how do you feel about it, Monkey Boy? I'm just going to look through the comments while you say your thing to pull some up.
I'll be honest, and this might be an unpopular opinion. I didn't really like the prequel trilogy. I thought the films were slow. I didn't like the dialogue. I thought it was clunky. The CG was barely passable in a lot of cases. I realise at the time it was probably okay, but looking at it now, I mean, I did watch the prequel trilogy at the end of last year. I watched them again, and I really struggled to get through them. I was on the verge of boredom. I really couldn't see the appeal, quite honestly. They had their moments, which were great, of course, but yeah, it's just too clunky and too wooden for me. And I realise I'm probably going to incur the wrath of the entire internet, but I would rather watch the sequel trilogy than the prequel trilogy. Yes, there are problems with them. I don't like what Disney did with the franchise. There are lots of plot holes. There's lots of inconsistencies. They did muck about with it a bit too much. But on the whole, I find those films very watchable. There's a lot of action. The effects are great. The dialogue is better. I would say I'd rather watch the sequel trilogy than the prequels, and I know that's going to be an unpopular opinion, but I've got to be honest. That's how I feel about them. I do think that Disney have made a mess of the franchise, and I don't think it was a good idea that Lucas sold the rights to Disney. I think that was a mistake. But I haven't, I mean, and Rogue One and Solo, I enjoyed both those films, particularly Rogue One. I thought that was brilliant. I thought Rogue One was the best Star Wars sequel we've had since Return of the Jedi.
Okay, so I would agree. Rogue One for me has been the best thing that Disney has done. I really enjoyed Rogue One. I've watched Rogue One multiple times, and it the way it links up to Star Wars or A New Hope works really well. The sequel trilogy, I think it gets more shit than it probably should. However, I don't know. Maybe I'm just older now. Maybe I don't know how to put this, because this probably isn't popular. I think as I've got older and set in my ways, for me, Star Wars is those 3 films: Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi, and everything else always seems a bit weak in comparison. Yes, there's the nostalgia of being a kid and getting to see Star Wars films. Yeah, I got to see. No, I didn't actually get to see the '97. Lucas special editions at cinema. I got the Star Wars trilogy box set. In fact, Pete the Collector is in the audience. He came round and we watched those together because I had them on VHS. So there's the nostalgia factor that pulls me to the sequel trilogy, although I can see its flaws now. Not a huge fan of the prequel trilogy. I'm getting confused. Prequel. Basically, I've got nostalgia for the prequel trilogy. That's why I give it a bit more of a pass. The sequel trilogy, not really my bag. But hey, the thing is, with all of these, is opinions are opinions. And any of you all out there who love all this, that's brilliant. I think it's great. I think there's no bitterness in me or my heart for anyone who enjoys what I don't. I just say fair play to you. If you enjoy it, absolutely bloody enjoy it and get on with it. I absolutely hated Solo. I was bored through Solo. I was so bored through Solo, and a few things happened in it which then undo things, which I think, given the start of Solo, Han would have known in the Death Star how he wouldn't have had to have shot the control console because he didn't know how to do a cool, it all comes around. But then that's just me being picky. But that's just me. I'm picky. You know what I'm like for picky and details. So as for the films, I'm not against them doing other films. I think they're doing a Mandalorian film, I hear. Is that correct? I'm sure the chat will tell us.
Not sure.
But I'm quite looking forward to that. I know we're talking sequel films, but I enjoyed the first two series of The Mandalorian. The third series didn't love so much. Really didn't enjoy Book of Boba Fett, except for when The Mandalorian came in. Surprise, surprise. And let's not review all of my feelings on all the series they've done, but I guess they are sequels or prequels in themselves to the films, just in TV show format, because it's all connected. So that's how I feel on that. If there's anything else you want to say while I just pick out some of the comments, because if I bring up your comment on screen tonight, guys, I read all the comments, but there's because we've started off with Star Wars, to try and keep it concise, not be on it all night. I'm having to sort of motor through it. Jason says, Nick, I hear that so much with people. To me, there are 7, but I know so many don't like them at all. Well, some people don't. I'm indifferent in many ways to it. Pete the Collector, gonna throw it out there. I love the prequels, and there's nothing wrong with loving the prequels. Just like there's nothing wrong with Monkey Boy loving the sequels. It's what floats your boat.
Well, I wouldn't say I love them, but I just find them watchable.
Okay. We'll clarify. He does not love them, but if anyone out there does love them, there's nothing wrong with that. It's absolutely fine to like something that another person doesn't. It's all good. I'm not sure if my microphone was muted when I said hello to Mr. B earlier, but hello, Mr. B. Thank you for coming along. I muted my microphone to vape because Monkey Boy says it sounds like Darth Vader's on the line, ironically. So sometimes I forget to unmute my microphone. We have
right, mine probably does as well.
Hey, G-Force, thanks for joining us. And G-Force in his next comments saying hello to everybody in the chat. What's Peter? Pete the Klets, but it's funny. I feel like I feel like the sequels, like Monkey Boy does about the prequels. So there you go. That's the thing, isn't it? We're all different in what we get out of Star Wars. What's Jason put here? He puts, I did, lol. Went and saw them at the cinema in '97 first time. Oh, that'd be Lucas's, special edition. New Hope in the cinema. And I think in a month's time, I'll be watching it again in the cinema. So, see, I'll go and... So something I'll tell you, I was saying this last night in a chat with a couple of the lads in the community. I've got the DVD box set of the Star Wars films. And one of the things I love about it is it's got all the original edits as well. And I love watching the completely untouched Star Wars. I love it. I love it, man, because that's how it's so good. But I'll still go and see those when they're in the cinema because I've never seen any of them at the cinema, and I'll take whatever in that respect. So, Travels and more with Jason says Solo was good. Cool. Jason like that. Tim has come in with, yes, Mandalorian and Grogu movie. So I think that could be quite good if they do it right. If they get a good director, if they get a good story. I'm not against going to see it at all. Might have to drive up to Norwich and Well, if that's where you live, Monkey Boy, don't want people to come and stalk you. Might have to drive up to where you live, and we'll watch that together.
People can stalk me if they want. That's absolutely fine. I've got nothing exciting in my life going on. I could deal with the stalker. That's fine.
The thing is, I know you could deal with a stalker. Baby Yoda the movie, says Alan Dawson. Yeah, so Baby Yoda the movie. TJC says the Mando film. Oh, sorry, carry on, Monkey. Say yourself.
I was just going to say, Jedi was not only the first Star Wars film I saw, but it was the first film that I saw in the cinema. So my first cinema experience was Return of the Jedi. So, what a fantastic introduction to the world world of the theatre there.
Well, I would say that, oh man, mine sucked, but actually my first ever film at the cinema, and I loved this film, was Edward Scissorhands.
Oh.
not on a level with Star Wars films, I'll give you. But I think as an introduction to cinema, I don't think I did too bad on that one. But then
No,
I
it's
love
all right.
that film. I love that film. Again, nostalgia. I'm just going to flick through a few more of the comments. TJC says, Mando film is to tie up Ahsoka, etc. I believe, Nick. Okay. I haven't watched the Ahsoka series. There's so many I still haven't watched, so I can't write it all off till I've watched it all. I do. What I will say is anything which I say I dislike, I have at least, I will give everything a chance and watch it. I don't, it's not like I just go, I'm not going to watch that. I will watch it and form my own opinion. What else have we got here? Mr. B says episode 3, my favorite of the prequels. Yeah, I agree with that. Reading movies.
Yeah,
Hello,
it is the
Lewis
best one.
says, my
Hey,
hot
man.
take, if it's not written by George Lucas, then it's just fan fiction. That's a fair take. That's a fair take.
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
all
fair
have our
play.
own views on that.
Yeah.
Just flicking through now. Monkey travels and more with Jason. Monkey Boy, you will have a postcard soon from Hastings, lol. I think you will like it. Ooh.
Oh,
Will it?
thanks, man.
This is travels and more with Jason. It's going to be a rude postcard, isn't it? It's going to be a Rudy.
We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
And I think this is worth bringing up from G-Force. My first movie of Looney Tunes shorts. Star Wars A New Hope. Oh, wicked. Oh, what, like the little things they played before? Wicked. So, okay.
Oh.
So, I think we've done what we had to do. We could talk Star Wars. If we wanted to go in depth on Star Wars, I can go in depth. Monkey Boy can, and all you in the chat are probably more knowledgeable than I'll ever be. And we could go for 12 hours on Star Wars. But let's
move on. We'll move past Star Wars for now. No one likes Star Wars, do they? Let's just move past it.
No, I think there's a lot of people who do love Star Wars, but the last thing I will say on Star Wars is I've never known a franchise, and other people, if you've got franchises you feel divide opinion as much as Star Wars, please put them in the chat. But I can't think of any other franchise which can divide the opinion of fans as much as Star Wars can. I mean,
it's weird, isn't it?
Star Wars can. I've seen people having full blown arguments about Star Wars, and I'm like, don't worry about it. It's a film. You like it, you don't like it, whatever. It's
bizarre, isn't it?
Don't get me wrong. I'll passionately defend why I like an element of a film if I like it. If someone's telling me I'm wrong for liking it, but ultimately it's a film. I love Star Wars. I love Empire. I love Jedi. That's my last words on it. Right, next thing.
Okay, next.
Anything else?
So I've got a load of notes here, sort of various things to talk about, but they're not in any particular order. So I think hey Lester, hope you're doing all right, man. So I think the rest of the stream might be a little bit sort of hopscotch here and there. Backwards and forwards, different subjects. We might talk about something and then return to it later on, because I haven't arranged these notes in any particular order. But I thought one of the things that I'd like to talk about is some sequels are they keep the same genre and they keep the same kind of feel, but some sequels change the genre and change the feel of the film and are still successful. So they're not necessarily capitalizing on the feel of the first movie. A couple that I can think of as examples would be Aliens, because of course Alien was a horror film, but Aliens, but Aliens was very much an action, and yet it was a very successful sequel. And I like both films on their own merits. I think Alien is a brilliant film, a fantastically made film, really, edge of your seat stuff, absolutely fantastic. But Aliens again was another, I guess, edge of your seat film.
G-Force there saying opinions are like arseholes, everyone has one.
Yeah.
I say that so many times in life, and absolutely true, G. Sorry to cut you off there, Monkey Boy.
That's all right. So, and I find it's quite interesting when a sequel comes out that sort of changes what you expect. I mean, it would have been very easy for them to make a sequel to Alien and have it be a horror film again. But I think it would have perhaps been retreading the same path as Alien. So I think it was a great idea to come back with an action film, and they work well together, even though they're kind of different genres. And of course, the Alien franchise then went on to be a series of mainly action films. So they never really went back to horror. But I thought that was an interesting change of direction.
It's the Alien. I mean, and of course, with Alien, you went into the AVP, the Alien versus Predator, and you had all of those films. I mean, I was actually chatting to a few of the lads last night, and Tez was in the chat, and I said to him, but it was a hot take last night. I said, right, now bear in mind, I love all the original Alien films. Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, I actually think it's not the best film, but it's not a bad film. It's I watch it.
No, I don't
it.
mind
It's
it.
part of the series.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love Alien Resurrection. In fact, I would watch Alien Resurrection over Aliens. Hot take. There you go. Because I love that film. I absolutely love that film. There's nothing in that film I dislike. But don't get me wrong.
Even the baby looking alien at the end, you didn't mind that?
I didn't mind that because it was because of the whole the DNA getting mixed up with all the different Ripley clones and whatnot.
Okay.
It was and I really liked how Ripley became sort of superhuman, and I liked how, like, when she's on the basketball court with Ron Perlman and that, and she makes the shot, like they smack her in the face with a dumbbell, if I recall, and she gets a drop of blood, she spits it or flicks it, whatever, and you notice that she's got the acidic blood as well, and there's that horrifying scene in it where you've got all the different clones of Ripley like that, and they're in various forms of disfigurement, and it's horrible. And it's set so many years after, and I think so the summer that came out on VHS, I believe, was the same summer Austin Powers International Man of Mystery came out on VHS, and for whatever reason stuff happened in my life that year, family stuff, and I remember my mum giving us a few quid because then you could rent a couple of VHSs for $5. Do you know what I mean? Go down video shop, and I rented Austin Powers and I rented Alien Resurrection. And I just remember I watched Austin Powers a couple of times because I've got stupid humour. We might go into those in a bit. But I loved Alien Resurrection. And here's the thing. Alien Resurrection was the first Alien film I ever saw. Yeah, because I was a lot younger at the time. And then of course, that led me on to, I think my sister's then boyfriend lent me the VHS set of Alien, Aliens, and Alien 3. And I watched that. I just wanted all things Alien. Because I was like, because the thing with Alien Resurrection is, although it does pay to know the previous films, and I knew they were, I think it fills the gap for you so well at the beginning that if you were new to the franchise, I don't think it's a disappointing way to start it. And I'm sure there's many. I'm sure there's many people who think I'm an absolute dickhead for thinking that, for loving that.
No, I mean, I liked all the first 4 Alien films. I mean, I don't mind some of the later ones as well. I mean, they're okay, but yeah, certainly I thought Resurrection was cool. Hairy shoulders. Yeah.
No, Alien Resurrection, real big fan of that. But so I'm going to jump to. I mean, we can come back to it immediately, back to Alien, but you were saying about how they changed how the film was. So a series of films I love, other than the very last one, the Rambo films, right? So if you watch First Blood, there is action in it, of course, but when I the first time I watched First Blood was on BBC, I think, and it wasn't until I was about 15 or 16 Okay, so I hadn't seen it. But all my life, because of the Rambo cartoon, because of the images of Rambo with his shirt off, with the bandana, muscly, sweaty, firing the massive machine gun, you have a preconceived image in your head of what all Rambo films are going to be. And I was shocked that First Blood it's a sad film. It's really going into the trauma, the PTSD of coming back from Vietnam, how he doesn't feel accepted.
Yeah.
And then you go to First Blood Part 2, and it's just an out-and-out action movie. Movie. It doesn't have the character development and stuff. You know, it's just like, here's Rambo, fuck it, son. Here's Rambo, he's going to just shoot the shit out of everything. Do you know what I mean? And I think they changed that up quite a bit.
Yeah, because the first one really was a character study, wasn't it? About the PTSD and the trauma of someone coming back from Vietnam, and another great example of a film that really, I mean, I guess the genre was similar, but I see what you mean. It certainly did change how they approached the film, and turned it into an action franchise, very much so.
See, Pod Racing. Sorry there, Monkey Boy. Pod Racing Pap says the Book of First Blood is good. Spoilers, he doesn't survive. And I believe they filmed that scene for the movie, but test audiences were so enraged, from what I've read, from what I've heard, there's all internet research here, test audiences were so pissed off with the death of John Rambo that they then made him survive, which was a good thing ultimately, because, again, I actually think Rambo 3 is better than First Blood Part 2. And I think... what's the bloody Rambo film? What's the fourth one called? I think it's just called Rambo again, isn't it? Like they just called it Rambo. Now I think that film steers closer to the mark of First Blood, although it's got all the action with the characters showing him older, retired. I think that one pushes more towards the feel of the original movie than say First Blood Part 2 or Rambo 3. And the fifth film they did, right, okay, it's like they watched Taken and went, let's make Rambo do a Taken film, but really shit. It's just, so, if you like it, guys, you like it. And I'll say this all night. If I say something shit and you enjoy it, no issues, man. We all got, like G said, opinions are like arseholes. We've all got one. But I
think another example of it. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, if you've got any more words to say while I have a quick scour of the comments to bring up once you've said your next bit. Sorry, dude.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I was going to say another example of a film which really changed genres after the first movie, and that was probably, in my opinion, perhaps the second best sequel of all time, and that is Terminator 2. Because, of course, the first Terminator, I would argue, was more of a thriller. I wouldn't say, I know there are elements of action in it, and there was a science fiction element to it. But it was a kind of science fiction thriller, in my opinion. It was all about the jeopardy of having this relentless machine that wouldn't stop and that was going after Sarah Connor, and it was the whole cat and mouse.
Bargained with.
Sure. And it was the whole cat and mouse thing, and it was very much I know it wasn't suspense, but it was sort of high jeopardy sort of thriller. But then, of course, Terminator 2 came out, and it was an unapologetic, fun action film. Not only did the character change, from being a protagonist from being an antagonist in the first film to being the protagonist in the sequel.
Cool.
The genre changed.
Can I just stop you there momentarily? Because I really want to get into these Terminator sequels, right? But I just want to go through these if we can just put a quick pause on that now, and we're going to come straight back to it. Because I don't, people have shown up in force, and I just want to make sure that they know that we are absolutely, absolutely see your comments. Let me just have a quick look through. Jason says, that's good, Nick, about you will watch something to get your own opinion. Well, yeah, I don't think you can form an opinion if you haven't seen something. I don't think you should ever form an opinion on what someone's told you certainly regarding films or TV, unless you've actually set your own eyes on it and invested your own time. Because as I said earlier, everyone takes their own thing from everything they watch or consume. Reading Movie says, first cinema film, Snow White. Second, Robin Hood. Third, Return of the Jedi. See, you had a good introduction to cinema there. You had a very good introduction to cinema. I may have missed something here, but Lester says He-Man sequel.
I'll touch on that a bit later, Lester.
Cool. So you know what that's about. Wicked. Okay, this is an interesting take, and this is a film I was probably going to get onto later. I think that Batman Returns was better than Batman. Joe.
Okay.
I agree, but we'll get into that later. Alan Dawson, well, with me being the Bond fan I am, we will get to Bond, but Alan Dawson says people can get pretty heated over who is the best James Bond. Well, I've got an interesting take on that later, Alan, if we get to it, so remind me later on, Alan, or Monkey Boy, or whoever. Martin says, Aliens is such a great movie, top 10 for me. I can see why that would be in the top 10 of anyone's movie rotation.
Yeah.
Aliens is a really good film, and of course, you know, we're going to go back on to chat and Terminator, but Michael Biehn, it's Michael Biehn, isn't it, who's in that film, who played Kyle Reese in Terminator, if I recall.
And actually, Aliens for me, actually, I found probably scarier than Alien, although there wasn't the amount of horror and jump scares. It was the fact that there was the huge amount of aliens that were overwhelming. There were so many.
That great, and they lift up the I'm really that's StreamYard's fault, because I swore earlier. I was so annoyed. So forgive the language tonight, but we do say this is an adult show.
I found Aliens a lot more sort of nerve-wracking than Alien, to be honest.
It certainly feels, as you said about the Terminator thing just then, it's more high stakes. There seems to be a lot more on the line there, that you do feel the tension of that. Let me just have a quick look here. Travels more with Jason. Aliens was good. I enjoyed one. 2 was better than 1. 3 was shit. 4 was okay, and so on. Okay, so I think he's saying that he thought 3 was shit, and sorry if I've misread that, Jason. And that's right.
I mean, Alien 3 had a lot of issues in production. That was a very troubled production. You know, changing directors.
I've seen 2 different edits of it. I don't even know which is the correct one, because in one it's a dog, one it's a bloody cow. I don't even know which is the. I don't know which is the correct one.
It did have a lot of problems, but I don't mind it actually. I think it was an interesting idea to have an alien story set in a place where there were no weapons. I think that was an interesting way to go about it.
And I think the setting with all the prisoners and that, I think it's a very hostile environment, and it just shows how bloody hard Ripley is. I mean, I know, spoiler alert, she dies. I do think that Ripley is such a good character. She is like proper. She's hard, isn't she? You won't want to take Ripley on. Let me just flick through a few more of these comments. Reading Movies says, I see Alien Resurrection as a spin-off, not connected, but it had some good scenes in it. That's fair. The thing to remember about Alien Resurrection, this is still Reading Movies, Resurrection is that Sigourney Weaver is not Ripley. No, so Ripley in Alien Resurrection is a clone. But they, if I recall, they do play on the fact she has memories. And it goes into the whole kind of clone hold memories. So that's sort of a interesting thing. Tim Hayes, lol, Nick, please don't refer to yourself as a dickhead. Well, I'll try not to, Tim, but so many people in my life do, so I'll do my best. Manga Fandango, our sires, join the chat. Hello, mate. Thank you so much for popping along this evening. Let's have another Luke. Travels and more with Jason. Rambo was meant to be one and one only. Film was never meant to be more. Well, yeah, correct. Because as I say, I believe they did originally film the death scene. I'm just going to have a real flick down now. Sorry to jump, but we have to keep up. There we go. Darth Wizzy Wizard, hello. Thank you for popping along.
Hey, man.
Good to see you. Thank you for being here. It says, yes, Alien 3 had major issues. Didn't like the characters getting killed from the second film. Yeah, that was one of the bits I didn't like because, the little girl's dead and...
I was happy with that. I was happy for Newt to die. I was more than happy for Newt to die. I thought she was the worst thing about Aliens, but I wasn't happy that...
That's fair. That's fair.
I wasn't happy that that Michael Bihn's character didn't survive. That was a shame.
And I won't read that one aloud, but you all can read it on the screen. So yeah, I cut you off, and I'm just going to say hello to Silver Scratch Built Productions. Thank you for joining us, and hello. Thanks for joining the chat. Thank you for joining our little stream. I cut you off at Terminator, and we were discussing Terminator.
That's okay. I think we kind of dealt with that. I know there have been several sequels in the franchise, but I just wanted to point out that the fact that it had gone from a sort of suspense science fiction thriller to an action film.
Absolutely.
And
Terminator
had really lost all that. There was a threat from the T-1000 in Terminator 2, but it wasn't quite the same. It didn't feel as dangerous as it did in Terminator. But that's all I had to say about that, really.
So what I'd say about Terminator is after Terminator 2, that as far as I'm concerned, there's never been a good Terminator sequel after T2. I see what they were trying to do with T3, but the director himself said that he didn't want people to think he was just ripping off James Cameron's style. That's why he inserted things like Arnie pulling out the glasses with see all that shit. I hated that. Let's not make the Terminator a laughing stock. I just don't like that. I know we're talking sequels. I think T2 is a fantastic sequel. I think it's a brilliant film. I love it. I can't fault it anywhere. I still think, get ready for this, that The Terminator is the better film. Story. So let's forget all the fancy special effects and everything. The Terminator is my favorite of the two, but Terminator 2 is a completely... It satisfies everything you want in a sequel. It's bigger, it's bolder, it stays true to the original film. It's very well linked together. I like the fact that they're building Cyberdyne off the fact that they found the remains of the neural net processor chip from the original Terminator that Sarah crushed at the end of the first movie after Carl Reese died, and how it's sort of I think they call that a bootstrap paradox, don't they? Where it creates its own loop of events or something like that.
Yeah.
And I like how they play on that. I like the whole plot in it with where Sarah goes rogue. Sarah almost becomes her own version of the Terminator. She's doing in T2 what they were trying to do to to Sarah in the first film. She's trying to kill Miles Bennett Dyson to prevent the war. So it's really interesting how Sarah goes from quite a naive young lady in the first film to this real battle-hardened woman in the second film, and it's interesting to see the strain in the relationship between John and Sarah, because of course he thinks his mum's absolutely nuts. That's why she's in, and great character development, great special effects. I'm glad that Billy Idol didn't get the role of the T-1000. I'm not glad that he hurt himself, but it's one of those things. But I do think that Terminator is better, but T2 is a perfect sequel, even though I think the first film's better. And I just want to say a quick hello to Zazel. Zazel's Clubhouse. Cheers for joining us, man. And also, Dragon Buddy, thanks so much for popping along. And I'm not sure if I already said hello to you, Zantara, but if I have...
Good evening.
Hello, Zantara says hot take for no one. Death Wish v... Death Wish 5 is the best Death Wish film, and Caddyshack 2 and Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey are funnier than the predecessors. That's fair. See, hot take, I actually prefer Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey to the original Bill and Ted. So there you go. We agree on that. So
yeah, sometimes these franchises get better, don't they? Not often, but occasionally they do get better as they go along. It's a strange thing.
So I just want to read this from Lewis. Read a movie. He says, strictly speaking, there should not be sequels after T2, but confirms T2 is the end. Yeah, I mean, that's how I see the Terminator franchise. T2 is the end for me. But I have watched every film, although I did really enjoy Terminator Salvation, because it was set sort of in that future world. Christian Bale was an interesting take for me for John Connor. The young Cole Reese bins. I enjoyed that. But again, it's not a perfect film, but I did enjoy it. I mean, I know the CGI looks bad now, but I liked when Arnie came. I liked how they quickly melted his skin off. So it's the T, is it the T101 model that Arnie is, and then one. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, mate. And so there we go. But and Darth Wizzy says, yeah, I feel you on T1 being the best. Again, if you're going to compare the films for which is the T2 is a far better visually looking for everything about it. It's amazingly made, but it's just for me the story. But nothing disappoints me about T2. I love to watch those two films together. You know, really good to watch together.
Incidentally, you weren't wrong about the one. It's Cyberdyne Systems Model 101 is the T800.
Oh, cheers, man! For a moment when you said I was like, I thought it was. I could be wrong, but there, these things go. Jojo says sometimes a sequel is better because there's more character development and you're more interested in the story. See, I think both the original Terminator films had good character development in them. But I think Joe's right. Sometimes more characters when you open up more about the people and you learn a bit more about them. I'm just going to say hello to this person. It's Vic Squires. The green ones will make you badly. Hello, how are you? Thanks for Sarah's arms are built in that film. See, I know that Vic's go into the gym and all that stuff, so that's something she'd notice. Like I never noticed until it's like I never notice every time I watch it that Sarah Connor doesn't have a bra on. Never noticed that. Enough said. Just hear just hear a pin drop there. Never mind. But yeah, so we sort of touched on those. I mean, I've got a few films and franchises I'd be happy to discuss, but go for another one, Monkey Boy. And I will say again to the chat, if there is a film sequel or franchise you want to discuss, put it in the chat. We're happy to discuss it.
I mean, there are several things that we may or may not get time to discuss. Franchises that got better, franchises that got worse, franchises where they upped the ante with each film. They just tried to go bigger and bolder and faster and more action or whatever. There's also remakes and reboots to discuss, whether we consider those to be sequels or not. Like I said a bit earlier, we've got sequels that were promised but not delivered. I guess we could touch on that briefly. For example, Transformers the movie. At the end of Transformers, Unicron said, "I'll be back," or something like that. I'll return, or whatever. And of course, we never got a sequel to Transformers. And the Masters of the Universe movie. At the end of that, Skeletor says, "I'll be back," and he never was. I can't hear you. You're still muted.
I'm such a... See, Tim said don't call myself a dickhead, but I'm a proper dickhead when it comes to muting, and I'm muting. Masters of the Universe. Skeletor does pop up, and we never got another one.
No. What I did want to discuss, I know we're jumping out backwards and forwards here a bit, but what I did want to sort of touch upon is some genres tend to lend themselves more freely to sequels, and it seems to me that the horror genre is rife with sequels. There are some standalone horror films, but it seems to me that if a horror film is successful, it almost inevitably generates a sequel. Um, I mean,
Definitely.
you've got Nightmare on Elm Street. There's been umpteen of those. Friday the 13th, Halloween, Child's Play, Scream,
Scream.
Texas Chainsaw.
Scream.
Yeah, Leprechaun. I mean, I think there've been about 8 or 9 Leprechaun films. They're all shit, but they just keep coming. And I don't know what it is about horror movies, but they just seem to. Maybe it's this element of with a horror character like a monster or something like this that's supernatural. They can always return from the dead, so they never really end. There's always a very an easy way to kind of bring a character back. Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers. They never seem to die properly. But I think horror movies are interesting, and I think horror movie sequels are also fall into the category of sequels that try to up the ante. So if you've got a horror movie such as Friday the 13th with 9 deaths or however many are in there, the next one's got to have 13. The next one's got to have 20. So they try to up the ante each time. More blood, more gore, more jump scares, and that seems to be a sort of trend.
Talking on horror films and sequels, but to jump back to something you said earlier, if we're going to look at they are films that can really, really change as well, and the direction. Because if you look at the first Friday the 13th film, and then you look where it went, I mean, Jason wasn't even the killer in the first Friday the 13th film.
That's right.
He doesn't come until the second film. He doesn't get the iconic mask to. Is it the third film he gets the mask?
Yeah.
Part 3, in the second film, he's got like the burlap bag with an eye hole cut in it, and then is it the 4th or 5th film? It's not even Jason; it's an impersonator because you've got the blue triangle on his mask.
I think the 5th one is it's someone who's a copycat killer, so Jason isn't really in it as such.
So it's interesting,
and those.
No, carry on, mate. Carry on. Sorry.
And the Friday the 13th films. I mean, the first film is great. The second one's okay. I really liked the third one. I thought that was good fun. The fourth one was good. The sixth one was good. I enjoyed part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan. I thought that was okay. It gets some shit.
The uppercut on the roof.
Yeah. When he punches his head off.
His head comes off. Yeah.
The Friday the 13th franchise. I mean, yes, they're all slasher films, and you could argue that there's a bit of a, I guess there's a limit to how good they're going to be. I mean, they're not going to be cinematic masterpieces. That they're just not. But they're all fairly good fun. You know what you're going to get, and they sort of deliver what you expect. I mean, there have been a few disappointing ones. Part 5 wasn't great. Part 7 wasn't brilliant. Part 10 again wasn't very good. I suppose
was
part
that Jason
9
X where
also,
he went to space.
Yeah, that wasn't good.
Which is the one? Is it Jason Goes? But the film in that series I absolutely hated. Now my cousin James really likes this film. Is it part 9 where Jason goes to hell? Right. So the thing I hate now bear in mind we've already established that Jason wasn't the killer in the first film. Part 4 or 5 you've already said it was a copycat, although he does come back at the end to kill the copycat, if I recall.
Yeah.
I really didn't like the fact that it was a possessed person in Jason Goes to Hell, and you don't. And then sort of all of a sudden at the end, Jason sort of bursts through the walls, sort of, and I'm like, that killed that for me, man. I wanted Jason. At that point, we'd established Jason was a killer with a hockey mask. That's where the franchise had gone, and we've gone. I still think that the best two films in the series are part 1 and part 2, and I would agree part 3 is a good movie. Although, if you've almost got to take each sequel as they go less and less serious, and I think Jason Goes to Hell tried to very much bring it back to the more dark, sinister. There was voodoo in that film, if I recall, wasn't there? It's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah, well, I think they were trying to explain or try and come up with a credible reason why Jason could keep coming back from the dead all the time, and I just don't think it worked. I mean, because it was like the possession by that sort of strange slug
That's
type.
right, yeah.
And I think that really missed the mark. I didn't like that one very much at all. I didn't like part 10 because they changed his look too much. I didn't like the Jason in space. I don't think it was a good idea.
The best part of that was when he's got the girls in the campsite and it's the computer simulation. He's got one in the sleeping bag, and
Sleeping bag, yeah.
Yeah, and there was that. I mean, there's the thing was.
Although part 10 does have that excellent kill in it, where he plunges the girl's head into the dry ice, into the liquid nitrogen or whatever, and freezes her head, and then smashes it on the side. That's a pretty cool death.
Sorry, I was there going, it does. I'm sure, didn't Jason kill someone else in an earlier film by picking up the sleeping bag and smashing them down? I'm sure that wasn't the first time.
Yeah, he's done it before, yeah. In Jason X, I think... no, sorry. In Jason X, I think there were 2 girls in the sleeping bag. I think there were 2 of them in there, maybe. I can't remember.
Because they have that bit where they go, let's have unadulterated sex and smoke pot or whatever they say, and then he just takes on. MonkeyBoy, I'm going to be a real pain in the bum here. StreamYard's not being our friend again. Is there any chance you could come out and come in again? Yep. I'm really sorry. I'm so sorry. But while MonkeyBoy does that, I don't want to move on to any other films, but the Friday the 13th, we will move on to other films, but the Friday the 13th films, they was such an interesting series of films to me, because as I say, they start so seriously, and Jason's mother being the killer, and she's so crazy in it, and then the end scene in Friday the 13th where the little boy comes out of the river and pulls the girl into the river is just nuts. But while MonkeyBoy's out, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to have a quick flick through the chat. MonkeyBoy is back now, but I've just said we'd have a quick flick through the chat, but we will do that.
Okay. StreamYard, you're a bell end.
Yes, StreamYard, but the popping that's happening's gone again. So I just don't know. Why do you hate us so much?
StreamYard, I hate that duck.
Yeah.
Think about what you've done.
Yes. Go and torture yourself. Travels and More with Jason says, Nick, did you watch the TV series of it? I presume you're referring to the Sarah Connor Chronicles. I did. I never took it as part of the franchise, but I did enjoy it. And if I recall they never quite finished it, if memory serves. But it was an interesting take on the franchise. So for me, another film that has sequels is like Highlander. You had Highlander, then you had the terrible sequels, but they had the Highlander TV series. And I never took that as part, because it was so different. That universe felt so different, and they tried to mix it in Highlander Endgame, and it just didn't work for me. Mm-hmm. Flicking back through the chat. Oh yes, I'm not sure if I'd already read this, but if I didn't, MonkeyBoy, we got a sequel to the Transformers movie in the Marvel UK comics. So
yeah, it doesn't count. But yeah, you're right.
Lewis reading movies says Final Destination and Saw movies have awful sequels in my opinion, but had very good initial movies. I would agree with that, Lewis. I would agree. I don't know how you feel on that one, MonkeyBoy.
I would probably agree with the Saw movies. I think they got worse. The Final Destination movies, I think there was some. I think the second one was good. I think it kind of it did sort of up the ante, as I've said several times. And I think the deaths were a bit more inventive, and I didn't mind the second one. But yeah, there were a lot of those, and I think it really peaked at number 2, and then it went downhill from there.
So Palp says, let's discuss the never-ending story. I recall it had credits, thus implying it ended, and there was a never-ending story. I really liked, as a kid, I really liked the first never-ending story, but I absolutely bloody hated the sequels. I can't really go into them because my brain is just didn't remember enough of them. Dragon Buddy says, Terrifier is a great gore fest. That ups the ante every time.
I'm
Not
not
seen
sure
any
I
of those
can.
films.
I'm not sure
so
I can agree
can't
with that. I
comment.
didn't mind the first one. I thought that was okay. I didn't find the gore very realistic, if I'm honest. I'd heard a lot of good things about it and watched it, but I wasn't too impressed. But I didn't mind it. I thought the second one was a bit weird and it was a bit all over the place. I think it was trying to be a bit too. I don't know. The second one didn't do it for me, although there was a couple of good deaths in it. It didn't do it for me. I'm interested to see Terrifier 3 to see how that pans out. I don't hate the franchise.
Okay, so Jason there says, "Oh, have they done number 4 to Terrifier?" It sounds like they haven't. I don't know. I can't. I'm so sorry, but this is Monkey Boy. Most you know Monkey Boy anyway, but Monkey Boy is really into his horror films. Jojo says Scream got worse the more they made. Now, Scream's an interesting one because I think Scream's an excellent film. I think Scream 2 is a perfectly passable sequel. I think Scream 3 was dog shit. And then I think everything after has been dog shit. And the TV series, don't even get me started on it. Although I have watched every Scream film. And I don't know why I keep going back to them. It's like I keep going back for this, but it's like I keep going back expecting it to redeem itself, and it never quite does. Let's have a look. Halloween 3 is garbage. Oh, what Season of the Witch? So in the Halloween movies, obviously you have I say obviously, it's not obvious if you don't know. You have Michael Myers, then you have the second part, which I think the first two really do go well together. Very samey, but they fit together well. Then, if I recall, it is Season of the Witch Part 3. And I think the reasoning behind them doing that was they wanted to branch the franchise out and have like Halloween is like have all its own separate little stories. But after the failure of that, they weren't so keen to carry on. I could be wrong. I believe I've heard that somewhere before. Dragon Buddy says, Jason Takes Manhattan is about the end of the franchise for me, 1 to 8, and no after that. That's fair.
Yeah. Although the remake was good, the remake of it was all right.
Comment of the night. Scream 7 or Scream V. Jojo, what's your favourite scary movie? Best comment there. You win the internet tonight, sir. Well played. Tim says, Cousin James, I've got a brother named James. Hey, I think we all need a James in our life. Let's have a look. Jojo, I also really liked The Faculty. I missed your other comment.
Great film.
Scream V. The first Saw film didn't find it scary, but enjoyed it. The rest weren't as good. And then she says, I really like The Faculty. Vic says, The Faculty is amazing. I've only ever watched it once, which is when I rented it, but I did enjoy it. I don't know why I've never watched it again, but I enjoyed it at the time. Let me just have a quick flick through. It's not that I'm ignoring any of your comments. It's just trying to get to the ones to move through this never-ending subject. So what I want, the horror films, if you don't mind me indulging you, Monkey Boy, that I really enjoy, or the horror film I really enjoy, and you said about remakes and whatnot. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Fantastic horror film. I love it. It's not that gory. It's not that horrible and gory. Is like when you look at the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, if I recall, there's a scene where a girl shoots herself and then you see through the back of the bus like a hole through her head, which is just like it's just awful.
That's a great shot. I loved the remake of that. I thought that was brilliant. I enjoyed it more than the original, actually, if I'm honest. I in terms of enjoying the film, but the original is a classic. I mean, you can't argue with that.
I think the parts that came after the original were not as good. They sort of got worse as they went on. But seeing
Yeah.
a comment here, whereas I've lost the comment. But if we're going to be talking about remakes of films, something you've just said actually, if we're talking remakes of films and franchises, I did not mind the Friday the 13th remake. I didn't
No, that
mind
was
it at
good.
all. Jason was a
Good.
lot more athletic. He was more sort of. He
Yeah.
was almost scarier. And the end bit, where is it the end where you see his head getting slapped by that thing with, and he's sort of, at the end, does he come out of the water? I haven't watched
Well,
it since I first
the
had it on
remake,
DVD,
the remake of
but I did enjoy
Friday
it.
the 13th was actually, it was kind of a, it was almost a remake of parts 1, 2, and 3, sort of mashed together. So it wasn't a retelling of part 1. It kind of covered everything. You had the bit about his mum at the beginning. You had him getting the hockey mask and stuff. So it was almost a remake of the first 3 films in one film. And I thought it was really good actually. But then Jason Voorhees is my favourite horror character. I think he's fantastic.
I think Jason's great.
I think the amount of Friday the 13th films there have been, and of course Jason has never said a word, which I think is great.
And the thing I like about Jason as well is I like the fact that there is no mystery under the mask, because you've seen his face before. If you've seen all the films, you've seen Jason's face. But there seems to be this mystery with the mask, but it is no mystery. He just favours wearing a mask because he must be insecure of his appearance. You know, he was a bullied child.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I love in the remake of Friday the 13th, when he's got like the bow and arrow, he's a proper hunter. He's quite, it's clever where they went with it. And I kind of wish they'd have done another one. Because I really did. I did enjoy the remake. I don't always say I enjoy remakes, but that was I don't think it takes anything away from the originals, but I think it is a very good modern retelling of the story.
It brought it up to date, and I really enjoyed the Friday the 13th remake much more than the Elm Street remake, which I didn't think was very good at all.
Oh, I hate. So one of my problems with the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, it's one of those films. I bought it on DVD, really excited to see it because I really liked the actor who played him in Watchmen, the guy who played Rorschach.
Yeah.
I can't remember the actor's name.
Yeah,
Comment section, please, if you want to save me here.
Jackie Earl Haley, I think his name is.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. Sorry if that belch came out on on microphone. How rude. But they redo the scene where he pushes through the wall.
Yeah.
And in the original film, it was, I don't know, it was done with fabric or rubber. It looks great.
It was done with a rubber sheet.
Right. And then that effect works brilliantly. And then you do it with shit CGI. Like, how do you manage to do it worse years later? Like, don't mess with that scene. Like, however they did it in the original, if you're going to recreate that iconic scene, don't think you can better it, because sometimes, a lot of the time, practical effects. I've said before in other streams that CGI should be used to dust over the bits that you can't quite cover with practical. The second you make it all CGI. Did I mind the look of Freddy in that film? Not overly. It didn't overly bother me, and I don't think it was an overly bad portrayal of Freddy. I just think it was a terrible film on the whole. And let's be fair. If you were an actor, mate, would you have had the balls to step into Robert Englund's shoes? Freddy, the most iconic killer. You know, not only have you got all the original films, you've got the Freddy TV series. He was iconic as hell. You had, which we didn't go into before the end of Jason Goes to Hell, obviously sets up Freddy's claw grabbing the mask. You had Freddy versus Jason. Freddy at times did become a bit of a parody of himself, but he's iconic. So that was almost a shit deal for whoever took that on, because what were you gonna do? I don't feel they did anything to try and I think if I recall, they tried to add a bit more backstory, but they just
A
didn't
little bit,
deliver.
yeah.
They just didn't deliver. I mean, what can you do to improve? I think they were at a loss all the way along. Whereas with Jason, there's been
Yeah.
so many people play Jason. I mean, the name that comes to mind is a chap called Kane Hodder, who played Jason many times.
Yeah.
I think they're on a hiding to nothing with the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. It's like the Scream films. You can have a killer who's connected to whatever. It doesn't really matter. The killer's the twist at the end. But with a film like this, you're trying to reinvent the wheel in that instance, and I think it failed. And I'm going to bring something up, if you do not mind, sir, because I may have already said hello. I'm just having one of those days where I'm just going a bit mad, but I just want to say special shout out to my friend Emma, because Emma,
Hello.
I can see you in the chat. How are you, Emma? And Emma sent me this. So Monkey Boy sent Emma a merch pack, and then she contacted me to thank Monkey Boy. And then I passed them out. I've been like piggy in the middle here. So Emma, he got your thank you. Everyone's great. Emma's grateful for the pack. Monkey Boys had your message. It's fantastic. But no, good to see you, Emma. And a quick hello to K-Dog Broadcasting. I'm sure I haven't said hello to you yet, but if I have, forgive me. It's really been an odd couple of days. But K-Dog says, I didn't like they made him a child abuser. He was more acceptable just as one who killed kids, if that makes sense. See, I think they all, I always got the impression, certainly as I was older, that was heavily implied that that's what Freddy was, without saying it. And whereas the remake told you outright. So I don't know, that bit didn't bother me so much. I just think it was, as I've already said, trying to reinvent the wheel, and you couldn't really do it. And I do think that, I mean, I don't want him to go away, but the day that Robert Englund leaves this realm, and I don't think anyone's going to replace him. I just think Robert Englund is Freddy Krueger. So I think you're always going to be onto hiding for nothing there. And Reading Movie says, it's as bad as being the next person to play the Crow. Who would want to step into Brandon Lee's shoes? Now, I saw the trailer. I went to see Deadpool vs. Wolverine the other night. I enjoyed it. It was all right. Didn't think it was as good as the first two films, but I think it was a good, acceptable film. I laughed a lot. I saw the trailer for the new Crow film. I have to say, that trailer hasn't sold me, Monkey Boy. It's not sold me at all.
I mean, The Crow was an amazing film.
Crow was
The Crow
incredible.
2, City of Angels, is one of the handful of movies that I have turned off halfway through and just thought, no, I can't watch the rest of this. This is awful.
It was terrible.
I don't know if it got any better. I'm not sure. I got about halfway through it and just thought, no, I've had enough of this. But The Crow was amazing.
Yourself some RAM there, mate.
Yeah.
There have been no good Crow sequels as far as I'm concerned. It's very tragic, obviously, what happened to Brandon Lee. Very, very tragic. I think the way they managed to finish that film. I know we're talking sequels here, but you can't bounce away from The Crow, the originator. The way they managed to finish that film was inspired. The way that was brilliant. You wouldn't know that they had to go to the lengths they went to complete that movie. And I think when they did the sequel, if I recall, it's been a long time since I watched it once. It was terrible. It's a different character entirely. It's a different Crow.
Yeah.
And perhaps they did that. Perhaps the reason they did that was they didn't want to dishonor Brandon Lee, because his story had been told. And I do like the concept of the Crow picking different souls that need to avenge a situation. I think that works really well. But I just don't think they put a lot into the writing of it. I think it was all style over substance. They gave it the gothic look, but whatever was going to happen
Yeah.
with a Crow sequel, you had to accept that you were never going to have Brandon Lee again. That's a given. You're not going to have him. He's dead.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. It's tragic. But I just don't think it delivered. And I know we said we'd touch on some remakes, but I could be wrong. And the thing is, I will watch it, but I won't be going to the cinema to see the new Crow film. Because the trailer I was like, really? Is that what you're calling the Crow? This looks shit.
Yeah, I'll wait for that to come out before I see that. I'll wait for the DVD or the Blu-ray or whatever.
And just to bring up a comment here from MSC, she says, nothing can beat the original Crow movie. I think you're right. And I think there will always be some instances where you can't beat the original. But then that said, I think it can depend on who's making the movie, because I don't think I don't think any movie is beyond a remake that could be a good remake. It's just you have to do it. You've got to get all your ducks in a row. You've got to be really clever with it. Obviously, I don't think you could ever remake Star Wars films. I'll throw that out there. But we've already discussed Star Wars this evening. So
well, I think the odds of sequels doing well are not great. And you've got the exceptions. Aliens, Terminator 2, Empire Strikes Back. That there are plenty of examples where the sequels have been very good. But I think there are probably more examples of franchises that just get worse and worse. And it seems to be that sequels often end up with a bigger budget, and yet they end up diminishing returns. And it seems to be the case with a lot of franchises. I mean, you've got franchises that just got worse from start. Every one that came out was worse than the one before. I mean, for example, the Jaws franchise. Obviously, Jaws is a fantastic film. Jaws 2 wasn't brilliant. Jaws 3 was crap. Jaws 4 was worse. They just got worse.
So hot take, Matrix fantastic. Every sequel afterwards just got worse, as far as I was concerned.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many. You've got The Howling. The first Howling film I thought was brilliant. Again, they just got worse and worse. RoboCop, another great example of a franchise that just got absolutely awful. RoboCop 1 is one of my favourite films of all time. Absolutely brilliant film. RoboCop 2 was okay. I'll give it that. It was okay. It wasn't terrible, but it's nowhere near as good as the first one.
I could say the same. It is a couple of franchises, and this could be a real hot potato here. Let's step away. I just mentioned The Matrix. I stepped away from horror, but let's chuck it out there. The Indiana Jones films. The first one was the best one, and then they've got worse as they've gone. I don't think Temple of Doom was a bad film in any way, shape, or form, and I don't think The Last Crusade was a bad film at all. But I don't think they ever captured the magic of Raiders of the Lost Ark and Back to the Future. I think the best Back to the Future film is Back to the Future. They are all good films, but I think Part 2 is a perfectly acceptable sequel. I think Part 3 feels a bit laboured. And I'd never want to see another Back to the Future sequel, and I certainly don't want to see a remake. But it's Hollywood, man. You never know.
No, you never know
what they're going to do.
Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is another franchise. First film, fantastic. Second one, okay.
But I'm going to defend the second film, though.
Yeah, I love the second film.
Not that you're trashing it. I love the second film.
I do love the second film, but it's still not as good as the first one.
No, it's not. But I do think I mean, I know there were problems with production and script, and I think Bill Murray was a bit of a pain in the ass through every Ghostbusters film. Knowing if they could get him. Yes, Ghostbusters 2 is not as good as Ghostbusters, but I've heard a lot of hate for Ghostbusters 2, and I actually think, despite the fact when you know a bit more through the years about scenes they cut weird scenes, you know, like when he's staring at the painting and whatnot. It makes a bit more sense in places, but I do think Ghostbusters 2 was a perfectly acceptable sequel. It's very enjoyable. There's nothing about me that doesn't want to watch Ghostbusters 2 if it's on TV. Quite happy to watch it.
Yeah.
But then you could go into, I guess people say, well, it's like the remake they did with the all-female cast. I mean, that just got absolutely panned and slated. I don't think it was a good movie, but controversially, I'm going to say I don't think it was terrible though. I don't think it was as terrible as it gets. It's shit. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's as bad as people say it was. If you can have that, if you can say that, it's shit, but it's not the diabolical state which some people reported on it.
No, I mean, I think it was a swing and a miss, but you know,
I think
their
their
place for
intentions.
trying.
Again, it's like it's kind of like I think their biggest flaw with that is I think had they have brung it into the same universe as the established Ghostbusters, rather than having these weird little cameos by the product. If you'd have set them up in a different city, setting up their own Ghostbusters franchise in the same universe, and you'd have had the previous Ghostbusters pop in along the way, I think it may have got a bit more traction. I think trying to completely take it away and have a complete retelling on that, I think you were, again, like the Freddy thing, I think you were on a hiding to nothing. I think they had reasonable ideas executed poorly. And you know, people, let's face it, as fans, we all become very protective of the franchises we love. Am I ever going to watch the Ghostbusters, that film that we've just mentioned again? Probably, because my kid likes it, because he likes all the Ghostbusters film. He's 10 and he doesn't care. It's just a Ghostbusters film and he loves Ghostbusters. So I probably will see. That's why I've seen it so many times. But would I choose to watch it again? No, I wouldn't. But, you know, they did their thing. It didn't work. Like you say, swing and a miss. That's what happens sometimes with films and remakes. But if I was to go down another route here, a franchise which you said earlier before we started the show that you've not watched, the Fast and Furious films.
Yeah.
Now there's a franchise that went nuts, so I'm sure most people in the chat have probably seen Fast and Furious, but if you haven't, it's basically a remake of Point Break, one of my favourite movies ever. It's a rip-off of Point Break. It's not a remake, it's a rip-off of Point Break, should we say. Very much the same story, except for replace the ex-presidents for street racers. They're not bank robbers, they rob trucks. And the second film, Fast and Furious 2, was okay, didn't have Vin Diesel in it. The third film, Tokyo Drift, they did their thing. They had a whole new cast, and at the end they brought back Vin Diesel again just for a cameo at the end. But when you consider the first film is people robbing trucks for TVs and DVD players, and the final film, I haven't seen the latest one, but if I recall, they went to space. Now yeah. So that gives you an idea, man. That gives you an idea of how batshit crazy that franchise went. I mean, they became secret agents. They were in space. There's one scene where they're in Dubai and they're driving Ferraris from building to building, crashing through them.
See, that sounds absolutely ridiculous.
It is absolutely ridiculous. And I think it was Fast and Furious 4 or 5 wasn't a bad return when they first brought Vin Diesel back. You were like, oh, this is okay. But then, like I say, they became secret agents, and tragically Paul Walker died, so they had to change the franchise. And then they had The Rock in it and Jason Statham, and they've had their shoot off film from it. And it's just got nuts and nuts. But I think some people like that about this. They like that it's gone mental. It's almost a joke on itself, and they've leaned into it. They've leaned into it, and it is what it is. I'm just going to jump into a couple of the comments before we proceed any further. Reading Movies says Hollywood should only remake bad films and try and improve them. See The Thing and The Fly. Leave iconic movies alone. Well, that's a very fair point. K-Dog Broadcasting. I think Temple was better. That's because I like darker films. So that's fair. That's fair. See, the first ever Indiana Jones film I saw was Temple of Doom. And I really enjoyed that. Yeah. But when I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, I was like, oh, this is excellent. Because if I recall, Temple of Doom's actually set a year before Raiders of the Lost Ark, isn't it?
Not sure. I like Temple of Doom. I thought that was cool.
I like the first three films in general, to be honest.
Yeah.
Crystal Skull. Me and Carla went to watch that at an outside cinema event, and I fell asleep through it. And then when it came out on DVD, I was like,
I do have it. I do have it, but I haven't seen it yet.
And the latest one there is what it is.
Right.
Let me just flick through now. Temple of Doom gave me nightmares. Jojo says that. Pod Racing Palps, minute for minute action. Temple of Doom is hard to beat. Yeah, it does have a hell of a lot. Oh, K-Dog, wow, this could really this is another section of sequels. You know, do you know what, Monkey Boy? I'm going to say this now, not for the next show, but shall we revisit sequels again at some point? Because I think this is a larger discussion.
I think we can. I mean, superhero remakes. I mean, if you're talking about remakes and reboots, I suppose Spider-Man is the daddy of all those, because of course there were the 70s movies, which weren't great at all, and for the longest time waiting for a Spider-Man movie, because I really liked Spider-Man as a kid. And so when the Tobey Maguire films came out, the Sam Raimi ones, I was over the moon, and I thought they were great. I mean, they got worse. The first one was the best one, but I was really quite happy with those. And then of course they rebooted with Andrew Garfield. So they started again with him, and then they started again with Tom Holland. So it seemed a character that is very ripe for reboots rather than sequels. Because they seem to want us to tell that origin story again. I suppose Superman has been done a few times as well in that regard. But I mean, superhero movies. I guess cartoons and comics do lend themselves very easily to being remade and rebooted. Because of the nature of the source material, and I guess there's always options to go, and because the comics and cartoons cover a lot of different kind of universes, I suppose that there are different ways of telling the same story over and over again, which you can't always get away with some other genres, perhaps.
Yeah, sorry, I did miss a few seconds of that, because for some reason did you hear that really weird sound going? Was that just me?
Nope, didn't hear that.
I turned off my interface, turned it back on and came back in, and it seems to have gone. We'll go with that. StreamYard.
I think we're going to have to find out where StreamYard is based, and we're going to have to go and visit their offices and smash them up.
To be honest with you, I'm going to actually take TJC up, and I'm going to let him give me a run through on how to use not Audacity, how to use OBS, because it's fast becoming a joke, this StreamYard lark. Mm-hmm. But anyway, to move on with the subject, and I know it's StreamYard, I know it's you, StreamYard. I said I was moving on because I can record on my computer and I have none of these issues, and me and Monkey Boy can connect on other platforms, and this doesn't happen. But alas, I'm paid up for now, so kind of stuck with it. So apologies for any of the piss poor audio, guys. We're doing our best. I mean,
there have been some good remakes. I know they're not sequels. And I know this is a discussion about sequels, but I think there have been some very good remakes. Some examples I can think of are Total Recall. I thought that was a very good remake. I thought that was more enjoyable than the Schwarzenegger one, if I'm honest.
Cool.
Fright Night was another remake that was very good. I love the original Fright Night. I think it's brilliant. But the remake was very good in my opinion. Um, we spoke earlier about Texas Chainsaw. I thought that remake was fantastic. So remakes can do well. Are there any films that you would like to see remade? Some classic films that
Well,
you'd like to see sort of brought up to modern uh, for a modern audience. I mean, one
now
example I could
there
think
is an
of that I've
interesting one.
spoken out about before would be Jaws. I love Jaws, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, and I'm not saying that it necessarily can be improved. But I certainly would like to see a remake of it. I'd be very interested to see a remake.
Okay, before I jump into that, and I'm sorry, there's no way I can do this other than do it live on air. I'm going to talk Monkey Boy and give me a thumbs up if my audio drops. So I just need to check now that StreamYard's going through the correct mic. So hello. Did my audio go dead then?
Yeah, it did.
Cool, that's cool. Sorry about that, guys. StreamYard, if you... Anyway.
I think we should go and smash them up. I'm up for smashing them up.
Me too, man. Me too. Films I would like to see remade. Ooh.
Not a reboot, but a remake.
A remake.
So essentially the same film again, but just brought a bit more up to date.
Okay, so you know I'm a massive boxing fan, a huge boxing fan. And I love the Rocky franchise, which is one of those films started serious and then went very Hollywood. You know, part 1, part 2, proper dramas. By part 3, it's just like a 90-minute in there, out there. And I know that they've done the Creed films, which is a continuation of the franchise. But in modern day, one of my complaints with the Rocky films as they've gone on, being as I am a huge boxing fan, it's things like knockdowns and that, and they're like, that's a knockdown. That would be a standing 8 count, or that would be. Do you know what I mean? Like, and Creed has improved on that, but a retelling of Rocky in the modern day, done right. And some people say, but they've already done that with Creed because they've brung in real life boxers and things to play the roles and that. But I just think a remake of Rocky could be done really well. And I know some people will argue that Creed has essentially, they passed the baton, they passed the torch in Creed and that. But I think as much as I love Rocky, and the first 2 Rocky films, if you watch no other Rocky films, and look, as they went on, they became more Hollywood, you know, like Rocky 3's Nuts, Clubber Lang, and then Rocky 4 with Dolph Lundgren, and then you've got Rocky 5, which actually had Tommy Gunn in it, an actual real life boxer playing playing a role in it. What's his name? I'd say my brain's got cooked now on who that boxer was. I say I'm a big boxing fan and I'm cooking my brain. But anyway, I think Rocky could be done really well now with, and I guess again people say, but they've done it in Creed with the clever camera angles and the way they've done the stadiums. But I think if you focus it, if you make it really story based, and I think maybe not set it in today. I don't know, maybe set it a bit back. I just think Rocky's such a good film when if handled correctly. And some people go, why would you want to remake such a good film? I'm not saying they should, but I'm saying I think it's a film, if handled correctly, could be made into a good film. Does any of that make any sense, Monkey Boy?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen all the Rocky films. I wasn't a huge fan of them. I thought the first one was okay. I saw. Was it the second one that had Mr. T in it?
No, that was part 3. So the first two films, in the first Rocky film, he fights Apollo Creed. He loses, and there's the whole thing at the end, which is there ain't going to be a rematch. There ain't going to be a rematch. Part 2, they're in the hospital. Rocky's eye's damaged, and they agree to do the rematch. Adrian's in some sort of coma through childbirth or whatever. Rocky 3, all those issues tend to magically disappear. But the first 2 films are really, really do go well together. you know, Rocky's sort of trying to retire because he's the underdog. I mean, he's picked to come up by Apollo Creed and nobody, and in the first round of the fight, he bloody drops Apollo Creed, doesn't he? And Apollo Creed's take. So it's sort of life imitating art, because, you know, you could look at the fight that happened recently between the MMA guy Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury. Like, Tyson Fury clearly didn't train for that fight at all, and Ngannou did, and he gave him 12 hard rounds. AJ got in there, trained for it, banged him out in like the second round. But there you go. But I think with all some of the stories that have happened in boxing and that, I just think Rocky could be revisited. I'm sure some people will disagree with that, but just Creed has tried to add the correct boxing rules and stuff to it, because there's a lot of shit that happens in the Rocky films that would never happen in a boxing match. I know you've got to suspend your disbelief, whatever it is people say, but if you know a sport like I know this sport, you can't skip it. Like Rocky 4, man. You're like, come on, man, that's a legitimate. Like when he bounces off the floor and he jumps straight back up and they start fighting. It's like, no, that would be a knockdown. Like there would be a count, and that just wouldn't happen, you know. And some people would say, well, just enjoy the film. I do enjoy the film, and I've enjoyed all the films, but Creed has corrected some of that, but I don't know. I just think someone could do it. Like Jaws. You could argue, does Jaws ever need to be remade? But if
I don't think it needs a remake, but I
Rocky
think
doesn't need a remake, but if someone
like
could
to see
tackle
it, I'd like to see another Jaws. Yeah. I mean, I think with proper practical effects, Jaws could be good. Because obviously they had problems with Bruce the shark in the first movie,
Brucey boy,
which is possibly why it was so suspenseful, because you didn't see the shark very much. I certainly wouldn't like to see it remade all with CGI. I think that would be terrible. But I think it's a film that and the story is good enough that I think it could be made again. I mean, when was Jaws made? 78, 79, something like that. Can't remember.
Let me Google it, mate.
I think it's great fodder for a remake. I wouldn't want to see a reboot of it, because I think the story is fine as it is. I just think that it could be done again, and you know, just mainly sort of
75, mate, 75.
75. Okay, yeah. You know, because parts of Jaws are a little bit slow, and I think it benefit from just sort of being modernised a little bit. I mean, I love Jaws. I think it's a fantastic film, which is why I'd be interested to see it again.
I think if they're going to remake Jaws, it would have to adhere to the whole. I think Bruce needs to be a practical, an actual puppet, like a machine as he was, and use CGI. Yeah. So look at the Batman films, the Dark Knight trilogy. They did a hell of a lot of practical effects in that, and they used CGI only when they needed CGI, when a shot was unachievable with practical effects, or when they had to sort of put a little bit of polish on it. And for me, that's what CGI should be. And I appreciate with some movies that, you know, I guess it's inevitable. From what I understand, CGI has almost become cheaper than practical effects now. It's always going to happen, but I think if you're going to invest the budget into a film, you need to do it. I'm just going to have a quick look at the comments quickly. I only watched the 1954 Fast and Furious movie that was made by Roger Corman, starred Ireland and Dorothy Malone. Okay, I'm not sure that there's any connection when they did that. I think I've read somewhere that there was some controversy over the use of the name for the Fast and Furious. They may have had to pay something. I could be wrong. I'll look that up. It's, K-Dog Broadcasting Space, The Final Frontier. Friday the 13th did it first. Now, again, there's another load of films that came from a TV series that, you know, I couldn't actually talk in depth about the Star Trek films, because the ones I've seen have only really been the Next Generation movies, and I know that makes me.
I haven't seen them.
What does Zantara say? The Fright Night remake was garbage.
Oh. I didn't mind it. I thought it was okay.
Okay. So, and again, if I'm skipping past comments, we are reading them. We appreciate you all, but just to try and get through, K Dog Broadcaster says Rocky 3 and Rocky 4 are the best ones. I can see why people would enjoy those over the others because they're a lot faster moving. The first two Rocky films are quite slow paced. It takes a long time to get to the action at the end with the fight, and it's filmed very differently. Whereas from Rocky 3 onwards, they were very quick movies, like bang, 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 they're fighting. You know, Rocky 3, I mean, sort of montage of Rocky winning, then Clubber Lang calls him out, he gets his ass kicked, and he comes back and beats him. You know, don't want to, you can't really give spoilers for a film that old, but yeah. Let's have a look here. I wanted a remake of Flight of the Navigator. It's happening apparently. Oh, no, that's an interesting one. I loved Flight of the Navigator as a kid. And I do think that's a film, if done right, it could be a really, really good movie. It could be an exceptional movie.
An interesting choice of director there, Bryce Dallas Howard. She's done some good stuff.
Jojo says, not Jaws. See, I think when we did the Sharks episode with Scuba, I was sort of like, oh, do they need to remake Jaws? I'm not sure how I feel about it, but Monkey Boy makes a good case. It doesn't need to be remade, but I think with the right person, with the right budget, putting the time in it, doing it right, I think it could. I think they could do an exceptional remake, but the chances are they'd really cock it up. Let's be fair.
Yeah,
Joe says,
I mean, I don't think
the crap effects, it adds to the nostalgia. Reading movies. What's the difference between a reboot and a remake? Okay, so I don't know if there's a definitive answer. The way I would look at it, so remake is a straight up. How do you say it? It's a straight up remake. So for me, like if you look at the X-Men series of films, there's been reboots in that, sort of soft reboots where all the X-Men films are in the same universe, but they've retold parts of it. So it's sort of a bit of a soft reboot, and a remake, I guess, would be like The Italian Job of Michael Caine. I absolutely love that film. And then they did the remake years later, which is just a straight up retelling of the film set years later, complete different cast. I probably haven't explained that well. What's your views on that, Monkey Boy, while I'm flicking through these comments?
Well, I think that a remake is either is more closely adhering to the original film, either a shot-for-shot remake or something very close to. I mean, for example, the Nightmare on Elm Street remake was a remake because the story was the same, many of the scenes were the same. It was a remake, whereas I think a reboot is taking the concept and maybe taking it in a slightly different direction. Some films I think would do well with a reboot. I mean, this is going back many years now, but I wanted to see a reboot of Ghostbusters because I was interested in seeing what somebody would do with it if they actually made it a horror film rather than a comedy, and made it really quite dark, and rather having like a family fun film, turn it into an actual either a horror or something very close to it. I thought that was an interesting idea, and I would have liked to have seen that. And I think it's a shame that
I think that would work. I think that certainly would have worked better than what they did with the all new cast and the remake we got.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see them remake Gremlins. I'd like to see that again done as more of a horror than a comedy. I'd be quite interested to see how that would come out. Something a bit darker. I know Gremlins is fairly dark, but something.
But that kind of goes earlier on. Not to derail what you're saying now, but when you look at the first Gremlins to Gremlins 2, they're really quite. The first Gremlins is, I would say, more dark. There's funny elements in it, but Gremlins 2 is straight. It's got cameos from Hulk Hogan. You've got the musical number New York. Still my favourite scene in that is we just want to be civilized, and then he pulls the gun on the other gremlin and shoots. Goes, that wasn't very civilized.
Yeah, I watched Gremlins 2 a few weeks ago. I mean, I like Gremlins 2, but Gremlins I think is the better film. But again, I'd like to see that done again. And I think there has been some talk about a remake of Gremlins. I'm not sure which I prefer, a remake or a reboot.
I heard that there was a potential third film in the series. I hadn't heard of a I'd take either as long as it's done well. You got to do it well, and that's the problem today. Doing anything well.
Apparently, they're doing a remake of Arachnophobia.
Oh yeah,
and they're supposed to be using real spiders, so they're not going down the CGI route for most of it. They're actually using spider wranglers. I mean, I'm terrified of spiders, but I'd like to see that. I would like to see
spiders. He's terrified of spiders. My wife is absolutely petrified of them. I sent him a video of me. I was clearing a garden of a load of rubbish, and there was this whacking great big spider. Do you remember? I sent a video of me like, go on, off you go, like touching it and stroking it, and you were like, I'd have had to have burnt the garden and the house down. And I'm like, that's all right. But then, you can't see it now. I sent Monkeyboy. There's a mark on my arm there. I sent Monkeyboy pictures the other day. I know it's derailing the subject, but I had this massive lump. I got bit by a spider moving a chair in my garden. My God, did my arm swell up. There was pus coming out of it. It was a bloody garden spider bit me. And it got so bad, I went to a pharmacy. They said if I had to draw like a line around the bite, and they said if the red goes past that, you're going to have to go and get antibiotics or possibly go get it. And it did, but I was like, the tennis final was on between Djokovic and Alcaraz. I was like, I'm not bloody going to the hospital. So I had my arm dunked in ice, and it started to go. I wasn't missing the tennis. I wasn't missing the tennis final. So
well, we've both been attacked by creatures this week. I realise it's a bit off topic, but I discovered a wasp's nest outside my bedroom window, and me, in my infinite wisdom, I decided to get a walking stick and whack the wasp's nest. Now, if you'd have asked me, if you'd have said to me, I've got a wasp's nest outside my window, shall I hit it with a stick? I would have said, no, that's the last thing you should do. Absolutely do not do that. But for whatever reason, I thought it was a great idea. And it turns out if you smash a wasp's home with a walking stick, they attack you and sting the shit out of you. Because that's what happened to me this week.
Yes, you idiot. So
I'm not going to do that again.
To segue this into the subject we're talking about, so you've got films like My Girl, where Macaulay Culkin dies of bee stings, and then wasp bees, all flyy, stingy bastards. And then you've got the My Girl sequel, My Girl 2, which was terrible. So I just wanted to segue in something there. But mate, what went through your head? Why? What in your head said smacking that was a good idea?
I've no idea. It's silly, isn't it? It's the last thing you should do. And I don't know why and even when I was going to get the walking stick, I thought this is a really bad idea. Why do I want to follow through with this? And I don't know why. I think I was just angered that it was there, and I just thought I'm not having that. I'm going to whack it, and then they'll all leave. And they didn't. They attacked me in force and stung me to bits. I got stung several times on the head. On the hand, and that was it was deeply unpleasant. So I'm not going to be doing that again.
Alan Dawson, Alan Dawson here. Just to get back to the stream subject, in my humble opinion, remakes don't mess with established lore, but reboots do. And I just want to say hello to Blue Sasquatch, who says, "Is this live?" Yes, it's live, and hopefully it's moderately entertaining. Thank you for joining us.
But not for much longer, because we are coming up we're coming up to 2 hours now, and we need to wrap this up before 2 hours. Otherwise, it gives us problems. Isn't that right, Nick?
Well, it's given that I've changed the way we're going to be doing the audio side of it. It's not too much of a problem now. But you are right until we. But I don't want to go, I don't want to go on too much longer because I have got to go to bed. But Blue Sasquatch says, okay, I like sharks. I know
Me
you
too.
do. I'm sure you said. I'm sure you said it. Was it you who said in the last stream? But if it wasn't you, I'm glad that you do like sharks. And they say, and this is an interesting one: remake the
Ah,
Goonies. Oh,
okay.
that could be interesting. I do think that could be
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Tim Hay says Spielberg was involved in the original Gremlins, so that might be why it isn't as dark. Why it wasn't as dark, but like Temple of Doom, they were both dark enough to start with the PG-13 rating here in the US. Okay, okay. What's in my experience, very few sequels trump their predecessor. Yeah, I think you can get. I think there are arguments for sequels that are better, but again, it just boils down. You said that in my experience, or if you say in my opinion, that's it. It's all down to the individual, isn't it? So Tim says, you're lucky you didn't end up in hospital. Yeah, you are lucky, Monkey Boy. You silly boy.
Yeah.
So we can carry on a little bit longer. There is one series of films which I said I would touch on, and I will touch on very briefly. We don't have to have a massive discussion about it. You know. So James Bond. Now, they are all very much their own standalone movies. If you not the Daniel Craig ones, okay? So the Daniel Craig reboot. So that's what I would call a reboot. But then you could argue that every time there's been another actor play Bond, it's almost its own reboot. But every Bond film, other than the Craig films, I would argue. Well, I wouldn't argue. I would say it's fact. Other than the Craig films, you can take any Bond film out of the original ones and enjoy it. It's as a standalone film. Yes, the Roger Moore era introduced returning characters like Jaws and stuff like that. And yes, you had Blofeld in several movies, but it was always bloody played by someone different. But the Bond films, so how do you feel about those with regards to sequels, Monkey Boy? I almost don't view them as, other than the Daniel Craig films, I almost don't view them as sequels. They're just sort of their own entity.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? Yeah, they're very much standalone, and you can watch them in any order. There's no direct sort of through line, particularly in any of them. So yeah, no, I think they are all standalone films. I will say that I do enjoy the Daniel Craig films. He's my favourite Bond.
They are good. They're good films.
I do like the modern ones. I think they are very good. It's not to say I don't enjoy the old ones, but I think some of the old ones are a bit dated and are almost a bit too tongue in cheek. Whereas I found the Daniel Craig ones a bit more believable. You know,
so for me,
sort of loosely speaking.
Let me give you a summary of how I look at it. So the original Bond films are almost like the Burton Batman films are a bit tongue in cheek. They're a bit funny, and then the Daniel Craig films are almost like the Dark Knight of the franchise. They're more connected. They're more dark. They're more real. There's really not a Bond film I don't like. I mean, obviously you've got things which aren't officially part of the series, and it's a spoof in itself, like Casino Royale. And then you've got the Sean Connery film Never Say Never Again, which is a remake of Thunderball because there was some writing credit dispute. And then Talia Shire, who played Adrian in the Rocky films, her husband, I don't know if he had the rights or whatever, something about it. Then he won a court case he could remake Thunderball. And that's why they did Never Say Never Again. And the play on that is because apparently Sean Connery said he would never play Bond again, and his wife suggested it as a title for the film. How true that is, or whether it's one of those things because that's a good story, I don't know. But it's a good film though, Never Say Never Again. It's actually better than Thunderball, to be fair. Although outside of the other Bond films. But yeah, the Bond films are all standalone, and you know, the only time they ever I feel they ever tried to really establish that it was a continuation was in on Her Majesty's Secret Service, because at the start of the film, when you've got the intro music, you've got all scenes in the title sequence from previous Bond films. Obviously not showing Sean Connery because George Lazenby stepped into the role. He was a one and done, and actually I thought Lazenby was quite a good Bond. Yeah, I said it. I thought Lazenby was a bloody good Bond. And they did that, but I think that was done just to sort of show the audience that this is still James Bond. Don't worry that Connery's gone; it's still Bond. But then you look at like on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and I feel it's a darker tone, it's more serious, and it's probably far more accurate to the character of Bond in the books than the Bond that was established in the movies. And then they talking about that. Then they bring Connery back for one more film. Because diamonds are forever. If I've got that wrong, how can I call myself a Bond fan? And they sort of wrap up the whole thing with Blofeld in the beginning of the film, and then it comes back to, but it doesn't really continue, you know, because at the end of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Tracy Bond's wife, I can't remember her name for her official title in the film. She was a countess or something or other. That's what beer and late nights does to you guys. Don't do it. But yeah, Bond's lost his wife. It's really sad. And in the next film, Connery's back. So yeah, that's why I don't really consider them sequels. Does that make the Bond franchise unique then? If we're looking at the original films, the fact that so many actors have played Bond, and although they are sequels, they're not really sequels. What do you feel on that, Monkey Boy?
No, I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah, they are all kind of their own individual thing, aren't they? I mean, the character is a continuation, but that's really it. The stories don't follow on. They're all very standalone. And I'd like to see more Bond films. Who do you think would make a good Bond now that Daniel Craig has departed the role? I'll tell you who I think I'd like to see in the role would be Henry Cavill. I think he'd be a good Bond.
Okay, so we're on the same page. So me and Kim Gonick, the other host of the Action Popcast, the one of the other shows I do on this channel, we were talking about this one night, and I think the guy who's heavily tipped at the moment, Aaron Taylor Johnson or something, the guy who was Kick-Ass in the Kick-Ass movies, he don't look nothing like that anymore. He's a big buff sod now.
Okay.
However, we were talking about it, and every time I came back to Cavill, every time, and I think he would be a really good Bond, and he's not too young, he's not too old. I think he would just give it to bloody Cavill if he wants to do it, mate. Because I could buy into him as Bond. I'm happy. Just give it to Cavill. He's a good actor. He's got the suave, smarmy bastard look, which I love, you know, with the tux on. Bond is a suave, smarmy bastard with the ladies. That's his role. That's who he is. Give it to him. And now I know that, spoiler alert, right, just mute yourself for 2 seconds if you haven't seen the last Daniel Craig film. He died. So there you go. Quite definitively died as well. But I mean, this is the thing with reboots and remakes. You can just do another telling of it. That's just one version of it. The Craig films, as far as I'm concerned, have got nothing to do with the original film. So if you reboot Bond now, you're just doing it again. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You can kill him off all the times you want. You just reboot it. And I get back to the comments about reboots and what they are. Just to hit some comments here. Vic says, Roger Moore, though. I was born in the late 70s. Roger Moore is my favourite James Bond, but I really like, as I said, I really like George Lazenby, although he was a one and done. G-Force, he's no Jason Bourne, but Bond is cool. That's interesting. See, I think that the Bourne films inspired how they did the Daniel Craig Bond films.
Yeah. I love the Bourne films. I think they're really good. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think they definitely did. And The actual film Jason Bourne, I didn't think was the best in the series. I don't know how I felt about the Jeremy Renner one. The Bourne Legacy. Was it the Bourne Legacy?
I think so. Yeah. No, I like that. I like that.
I saw it at the cinema. It wasn't terrible, but I if I was going to sit down one day and do a Bourne day, I would watch it because that's me. But I wouldn't be upset if I didn't watch it. Do you know what I mean? It's its own.
Yeah.
We have Zombie Hunter. Hello, Zombie
Hello,
Hunter.
Zombie.
Hey guys. Good to
Hello.
see you. Good to see you. And just flicking through now. Cat, could James Bond mess you up with a pen? Nope. He's too No, James Bond would mess you up with a pen, Cat. James Bond's. Don't be under the illusion.
Maybe not as much as John Wick. John Wick could probably win in a pen fight.
James, I mean, the thing is, with every actor who's played Bond, it's become its own thing. Roger Moore was a bit more sort of jokey humour. Connery was a bit more questionable. like what happened in the Connery films today, you'd never see in a film today. You just wouldn't. You wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
Roger Moore was, I don't know. I just like him. Just keeping the British end up, sir. Oh, he's just so. He's just Roger Moore.
I mean, Roger Moore was my first Bond. He was the one that I watched most as a kid. But then obviously got into the Connery ones and stuff as well. I haven't disliked any of the Bonds, if I'm honest. But no. I still say that Daniel Craig is my favourite.
And interestingly, if you like the Daniel Craig films, they're basically retelling the story of the Sean Connery films anyway. So that's where there's a lot of inspiration from the Connery films in the Craig films. Right. But yeah, so we can move on from Bond now, but I had to mention it. I mean, dude, I've got a massive list of films here, but we're 2 hours and 10 minutes in. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap this up? Oh, and I'm just going to bring this up. Jojo says, I quite like Timothy Dalton as Bond. Dalton was an excellent James Bond. He was an excellent James Bond.
Yeah, I think they've all been okay in their own way.
I think they all have, to be fair. I think Pierce Brosnan was an exceptional James. I think there was some piss poor writing after the first two films, but I think Brosnan looked the part, sounded the part, was the part. Brosnan was a Bond.
I think for most of the Bond films, not all, admittedly, but for most of the James Bond films, they are, to one degree or another, quite tongue-in-cheek. And I think the Daniel Craig ones are the only ones that haven't been tongue-in-cheek. And I quite like the absence of that. Not that there was anything wrong with that, but I didn't miss that. I thought they were stronger films because of that.
There are moments in the Craig films. I know, when which is the one where they're at the carnival at the start of the film, and the roof Spectre, that's it. And he lands on, and he falls off the roof collapses, and he lands on the sofa, and it's really funny. Like they're playing on it, and I like the way shit happens around him, and he'll just like adjust his cufflinks and stuff, just like you can imagine Bond being like that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I do think Daniel Craig was a really good James Bond. I don't think the writing was always up to par and all that. I think Quantum of Solace was by far the worst film in the series, but
yeah,
I do believe that.
I think Quantum of Solace was let down. Yeah, well, I think Quantum of Solace was let down by the editing more than anything.
And it was the shortest.
Because there were scenes
Bond
in that film
ever.
where you just couldn't follow what was going on. Car chases, and you're like, which car am I supposed to be in now? And fist fights, and you're wondering who's punching who, and I just couldn't follow it. The editing in that film was piss poor. It was so rapid and so fast, you just couldn't follow anything, and I think it was trying to be too exciting. So that was quite a disappointment when I saw that one. But I think all the others have been okay.
Yeah, again, I think Monkeyboy, I said it earlier in this, but I think we're going to have to push towards closing this up. But I would be happy to revisit this subject again sometime, because
I think at some point it's got legs for some more discussion. Yeah.
and this is probably the least we've got. I've got a list of films, and Monkeyboy's got a few, like 4 bullet points in front of him. We normally do a lot more research, so hopefully this free-formed episode has been enjoyable for you all. There is one thing we probably need to do, and I did promise him that he could come out and give a quick description of his favourite remake. So, yeah. Hello, Robert.
Oh, okay. Hello, Robert.
So, Robert, you've got 10 seconds, mate, because we're right by the end. Tell everyone what your favourite remake is. Or not your remake, your favourite sequel, sorry. Well, he. Are you sure on that? Okay, well, that's brilliant. I didn't realise you were so passionate about the second Debbie Does Dallas movie, but that's absolutely fine, you little. And you would like to see a remake of it. Okay. I'm not sure Judi Dench's the lead role. Is
Monkey.
Well, he did say that he'd like to see a remake of it as well, and he would cast Judi Dench as the lead. I'm not sure it's something she would be up for, but...
Oh, no. Robert, you told me you were going to talk about Ace Ventura 2 when nature calls. You
you little deviant. Off you go, Robert. Off you go, mate. He just never fails to surprise us, that one.
filthy monkey.
That's all I need. Another puppet on a stream. Yeah, well, he's not a puppet. He's alive. He's not a puppet. He's alive as Robert. So, MonkeyBot, I think given that our audio is going to shit again, I think it's probably time to wrap this up and thank absolutely everyone who's joined us. Chat, you have been fantastic.
Thanks everyone for stopping by. That's been brilliant. Thank you so much for joining in.
You've all been fantastic. I've really enjoyed this stream. We will revisit this at some point. Thank you. You've all stayed pretty much most of the way through, which has been incredible. We will be back next month. We already know what our next subject is, but we'll tell you closer to the time. So I think the next subject is a good subject. I think I can see impressions, and I can see people doing impressions and people really enjoying the next one. And that's all I'm going to say on it. But you've all been great. Thank you so much for the continued support. As I say, if we haven't got to your comment, I have read them all and they've been great. Sorry for the audio issues we're having. I think you just have to accept that StreamYard hates us. And for the most part, the audio's been fairly okay. It's just been kicking in and out in places. But again, I can't keep repeating myself, but I will repeat myself again. You've all been great. Thank you so much for joining us on Live and Moderately Entertaining. We do appreciate you, because without you, the show doesn't really work, because it's live and supposedly moderately entertaining. What I will say is, MonkeyBoy, I'll say this for you, because your audio is really crapping out again, so I do apologise. If you want to follow MonkeyBoy, links to his channel, Monkeyboys Toys and Skeletalk are in the video description, and I'm pretty sure he's got another video for each channel coming out tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yep.
It is. So sorry that MonkeyBoy couldn't say that, but it's literally just going to crap, the audio at the moment. But thank you for being so patient. Thank you for joining us, and we're going to do the awkward wave and say see you on the next one. Bye. Bye. Bye.